the games begin.
And hello everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. First of all, I just want to apologize for having the podcast come out a little later than usual. I've got some things going on over here on my end, doing some early spring cleaning, and it just kind of took up some of my time. So, I just want to apologize for the podcast being up a little later than usual, and if it feels a little, structured or anything like that, I apologize even more. These last few days actually, have been kind of very tiring, so forgive me for that as well. But yeah, I'm not going to waste any more time, so let's just get right to it. There was, of course, one news item that came out after the podcast went up last week, and it's becoming kind of a trend as of late. So for the last 2 weeks, the news item that we're going to talk about after the podcast went up was Terminator related. So the new Terminator movie has found its new Terminator and a female lead. So it was reported 2 weeks ago that the new Terminator movie with Deadpool director Tim Miller had been pushed back from a summer release date to a November release date. But now it looks like the search for the new Terminator, besides of course Arnold Schwarzenegger's returning T-800, has been found. The Hollywood Reporter reports that Gabriel Luna has been cast as the new Terminator, and the Colombian actress Natalie Reyes has been cast as the lead role. Now, Luna obviously has some very big shoes to fill playing the Terminator, but it's kind of a change of pace for the new Terminator. It's kind of interesting. Luna's probably best known for his roles in the El Rey short-lived series Matador, and his role as the new Ghost Rider in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He also had a few episodes in Season 2 of True Detective. However, Luna won't be the only future threat our new characters have to worry about, because according to the outlet, Mackenzie Davis, who was already a part of the cast, she will be playing a soldier assassin from the future. So we don't know how she comes into the fold with the other characters, but we have three futuristic components to this new movie. As for the human characters, Reyes will play Danny, quote, a young woman from a working class neighborhood in Mexico City who finds herself in the battle between humans and machines. End quote. This goes pretty much what the franchise creator and producer of this movie, James Cameron, wanted from the new potential set of movies, which was a Latina actress playing the female lead, which was really, really cool. On top of that, also it was reported last week that Diego Boneta from Fox's Scream Queens had already joined the cast, and his role was apparently kept secret at the time, but it looks like he will be playing Reyes' brother in the movie. Also returning, of course, is Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, which is fitting since the movie will be a direct sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day, ignoring basically all the other movies. So this is kind of a cool move. Obviously, Gabriel Luna is not the biggest name out there, and he's not the biggest person out there, but depending on what they give Luna, I think he'll be able to knock it out of the park. I really liked what they did with him in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as Ghost Rider. I actually watched Matador, and I think I thought he was pretty good in that. So I like it, and I think a lot of times we just automatically think that the Terminator should be like this big muscular man, but you can't always get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You can't always get someone like John Cena or anything like that. So Gabriel Luna is a good fitting choice for what they want to do. And again, we don't know the approach or what they're going to do with the movie, so we just have to take everything at face value at the moment, but I'm thoroughly behind this. And as for Natalie Reyes, I've never seen anything she's in. Again, she's a Colombian actress, so a lot of her stuff is from Colombia. She's done a few TV series down there, so we'll just have to take everything as we take it. Terminator. The new Terminator movie will start filming this year, and currently later this year, and will have a release date for next year on November 22nd. So that was the only real big noteworthy news item that came out after the podcast went up last week. Let's move forward with this week's movie news items, and of course, as always, right here on the Movie Pit Podcast, we go straight to trailer talk.
Coming soon to theaters.
This week was a very good week for movie trailers. Usually you get like 1 or 2 trailers that are like, they're okay. No, this week, all the trailers were top notch. All the trailers were great. We're just going to talk about the big ones this week. Of course, with everything, we also have a very stacked week of movie news. So we're going to just highlight some of them. Other trailers that came out this week that we're not going to talk about is the new A24 horror thriller movie, Hereditary. It's a short trailer. It just ups the creepiness and what the hell is going on in this movie factor. So it's a great trailer if you want to go check that out. And the new trailer for the Melissa McCarthy comedy Life at the Party, which comes out now in a few weeks, comes out Mother's Day weekend. So those movies, of course, we'll talk about both movies when they come out. Life at the Party comes out next month, like I mentioned, and Hereditary comes out in, I believe, June. So we'll definitely be talking more about those movies when they come out. But if you want to go check out the trailers, which I do recommend you go do, the Life of the Party trailer was actually a lot better than the first trailer, and the Hereditary trailer, again, just pumps up the creepiness and what the hell is going on in this movie factor. So those trailers, of course, along with the other trailers that we're going to talk about right now, are all down below in the description/show notes area if you want to go check them out. But the trailers that we're going to highlight this week on the podcast, the first one is for a movie that I've been looking forward toward for a while, and that is Hotel Artemis. The movie is directed and written by Drew Pearce, who wrote Iron Man 3, and he's actually making his directorial debut on this movie. And it takes place in a future Los Angeles where it revolves around a secret, members-only hospital that caters to criminals who need to get stitched up. The Hotel Artemis is run by the nurse, played by Jodie Foster in the movie, which also has a set of rules, like no killing the other patients or no weapons. However, the safe haven for criminals gets upended when a gang comes looking for their property that was mistakenly stolen.
3 minutes. Open the vault now! Oh, that's real nice.
You don't want it?
No, I really do.
Hit the ground now!
I need to make a call.
Hello. How can I help? Easy, fellas. Everybody's gonna get fixed up. Now verify your memberships, and we're off to the races.
The Artemis is a secret hospital for criminals.
I thought you were done with all this.
I got out, but you know how it goes.
You're never out. Not up here.
I thought this place was a myth.
We've been here for 22 years. This hospital was built on 2 things: trust and rules.
You see that badge? That means I'm a healthcare professional.
You're an arms dealer, right?
Don't push my buttons. Don't you do that.
I'm a professional, but this woman, she's a business. If you knew what she could do to you with just that cup of coffee.
You're lucky this place has rules.
The Artemis isn't safe for us, because it is. It's a portable vault.
Worth about 18 million.
Wolf King's probably gonna want those back.
Okay, this is a real problem. It's here.
Open the gate!
That's against the rules.
Rules? Without the rule breakers, honey, where would you be?
You got like a plan. You're my brother. I love you.
3D printing complete.
I got the next best thing. I got a gun.
I guess my ballroom days are over, baby.
Showtime.
There's a war zone up here.
Am I gonna make it out of here?
We can do it together.
This is what I do.
Visiting hours are never.
Busy night at the Artemis.
You know, you might want to buy some scented candles or something, because it smells like somebody died in here.
They did.
Like I mentioned, I have been looking forward to this movie for a while, And since it was first reported on, I thought the concept was interesting, and then I started putting the cast together, and I thought all the cast was great. And now seeing the trailer, I think it's pretty cool. Now, since the trailer has come out, there's been a lot of comparisons, of course, to John Wick's infamous hotel, the Continental, which is fair. It's very fair. You know, you got all these criminals, and you got this place where they can go and get stitched up and everything. That's perfectly fair. However, as I was watching the trailer, and as the trailer, you know, progresses, and we get to a certain point where it looks like people break in, I kind of got a Smoking Aces vibe for some reason. I don't know if a lot of you guys remember Smoking Aces. It was directed by Joe Carnahan. It had Jeremy Piven, Ryan Reynolds. I don't know why I blinked on his name, because we talk about him a little bit later. Ray Liotta was in there. It was a cast. It was kind of similar to this, and a tremendous cast. Who else was in there? Chris Pine was in there. Ray Liotta, Matthew Vaughn, or not Matthew Vaughn, Matthew Fox, Nestor Campbell was in there. There's just, if you look at the cast of Smoking Aces, then Ben Affleck was in there. If you look at the cast of Smoking Aces today, you'll just marvel at the fact of how many big names are in there. And this is kind of similar to that, so I kind of got a Smoking Aces kind of vibe. But I see the comparisons to the Continental, I really do. But nonetheless, the cast is impressive. Like I mentioned, Jodie Foster's in the movie. She plays the nurse that looks like she runs the Hotel Artemis. And it looks like she has some aged up makeup, because I don't think she actually looks that old, but it looks like they make her look a little older in the movie. I could be wrong, but from the looks of it, they kind of look like she had some makeup going on there. But the cast, you have Sterling K. Brown, Brian Tyree Henry, Sophia Bontella, Dave Bautista, Charlie Day, Jenny Slate, Zachary Quinto, and Jeff Goldblum, who looks like he's playing the villain. Which that, I think alone is like, as soon as he pops up, everyone's going to be like, oh no, yeah, I'm in now. But I was in way before that, so it looks pretty cool. It looks like just like this dirty, gritty action thriller that's just going to build up to craziness. And I'm totally okay with that. So like I mentioned, I've been looking forward to this for a while. Seeing the trailer now, I'm just even more all in. So Hotel Artemis opens June 8th. So you can prepare for that. We'll definitely be talking more about that as we get closer to the release date. The next trailer we're going to talk about is the first trailer for the Equalizer 2, which you may have forgotten or not known that there was going to be an Equalizer 2 and that it was coming out this summer. But don't worry, because the trailer dropped this week, just to remind you. The sequel brings back Denzel Washington as Robert McCall, of course, a retired agent turned into a hired gun for anyone who needs help. The sequel will find McCall in a new life, but after the death of one of his closest friends, which is a giveaway in the trailer, he goes back into action to get some revenge, and oh boy, does he go get some revenge.
First time to Turkey?
No. Long time ago, different life.
Now you come back.
Yes, I'm looking for something.
You can find whatever you wish in Turkey.
How about a man who kidnapped a little girl from her American mother?
Would not be looking for such a man. It would be dangerous for you.
Men like him would think that.
Robert, I'm your only friend. It's great you're helping all these random people and everything. But stay off the radar. Something happened to one of ours. So I'm obligated to look into it.
Thought you were retired.
Oh, I am. Just like your dad.
Yeah. What's the matter? They knew what floor she was on.
They're tying up loose ends.
Exactly.
I was your partner for 7 years, Mac. It's a mistake to go to war with him.
It's go time.
They're going to war with me.
It's go time.
whoever did this have off-chart skill sets. They're with the agency, family. You ever see Star Trek? Very good. Call 911.
Go time. Roll it down with a good rhyme and I run out with a boucan that's a relay race with a bouquet. They say, K, you gon' marry mine. Yeah, okay.
They killed my friend. So I'm gonna kill each and every one of them. And the only disappointment is that I only get to do it once.
The sequel actually marks the first time that Denzel Washington, in his very long career, along with director Anton Fuqua, who is returning to direct the sequel, have done a sequel. In all their years of doing movies, they have never done a sequel, and this is their first one. So that's pretty impressive, and I think just adds to the Equalizer 2, the fact that they made another one. I mean, the first one was a modest hit. It wasn't, groundbreaking or anything, but it did make enough money to at least warrant a sequel. And there was enough fanfare, and Sony, who released the first movie, were very high on the movie when it came out, and they were set to be very high on this one. So, if they can get Denzel back to do a sequel and get Anton Fuqua to come back to do a sequel, I think we're probably in for a good one. And based off the trailer, I think we may be, because they're not afraid to show you how lethal Robert McCall is now. The first one, he was this guy just trying to live his life, and he gets sucked back in, and he's a little out of, he's got some rust around him. And this one, it's like, no, like, he hasn't lost a step. Like, this is basically kind of Denzel Washington's Taken, in terms of, Liam Neeson had his Taken, and now Denzel Washington has his Equalizer. So just based off the trailer, just seeing him literally just go through these guys and like break their arms and like snap their necks and stab them and all this other stuff. It's very impressive. And the Equalizer, it took a while to kind of build up to that final ending where it just all hell broke loose. But this one looks like all hell's breaking loose all the time. So I'm really excited. I didn't know what to expect. Not that I wasn't excited, I just didn't know what to expect from the sequel. But now seeing the trailer, I'm really all for it. So the sequel will star Melissa Leo, Pedro Pascal, and Bill Pullman. The Equalizer 2 opens July 20th. We'll definitely be talking again more about this when we get closer to the release date. And the next trailer we're going to talk about is the new and final trailer for Deadpool 2. Which, first of all, shows off a lot of brand new footage. It gives us a lot more Cable, and yes, even has a DC jab.
We getting close.
You all know the drill. Intercept the convoy. Watch out for Cable. Hit it! There's this kid. He's in trouble.
Move or die.
Pump the hate brakes, Thanos. I ain't letting Cable get to him. But I can't do this alone. We need backup. We're gonna form a super duper fucking group.
It's time to get back on LinkedIn.
Meet Bedlam. My name's Shatterstar.
Domino, I'm Lucky.
Luck isn't a superpower.
And certainly not very cinematic.
Yes, it is.
Let's meet in the middle and say no, it isn't. Fuck it. It's showtime.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my pants, putting suckers in fear. Making the tears rain down like a monsoon. Listen to the bass go boom. Explosion. Damage. Damage.
You're no fucking hero. You're just a clown. Dressed up as a sex toy.
So dark. You sure you're not from the DC universe?
Bring it on, One-Eyed Willie.
bullets. They're really fast.
And last but not least,
Peter.
any power you want to tell us about?
I don't have one. I just saw the ad.
You're in.
So the sequel finds Wade Wilson, of course Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds, who faces off against Cable, played by Josh Brolin in the movie, who is a freedom fighter from the future, in order to protect a young mutant, played by Julian Dennison. And that's kind of what we're getting from the movie. So Deadpool ends up putting together the X-Force, this group of other mutants. We see a few of them in the trailer. We see Zazie Beetz as Domino, who we've seen in the previous trailers before. Terry Crews as Bedlam. We finally get to know who he is. Bedlam is a character who actually was on X-Force and has been in the comics around. Louis Tan plays Shatterstar, who is also an alien from the future who time travels, so there's maybe a connection there with Cable. We don't know. And we get to see Colossus again. We get to see Negasonic Teenage Warhead. We get to see a new character played by Sholi. I think I'm pronouncing her name wrong, so forgive me for that. Sholi Kutsana. I could be mispronouncing her name, which I'm disappointed in myself. But it looks like she's playing one of the students and one of the mutants from the X Mansion. But it looks, because a lot of her scenes are kind of with Negasonic Teenage Warhead. So we get to see all them kind of come together, and it looks like maybe they're fighting Cable. It looks like Cable may be a villain, or at least a very big antagonistic force toward everyone, because obviously he's going after this kid. We don't know why he's going after the kid. We don't know who Julian Dennison's playing officially. There's been rumors about who he's playing in the movie, but we don't know who he's playing officially, so I don't know. But this is kind of interesting. But for the trailer itself, it's really, really cool. It is a Deadpool trailer. It is a Deadpool movie through and through. You know, you got the DC jabs. You know, you got, of course, he talks about, you know, Josh Brolin being Thanos and all this other stuff, and it's just great to see. And that, like, the whole thing about bringing the team together. And then there's Rob Delaney in the movie, who has already become like the MVP of the movie without anyone seeing what he's gonna be in the movie, which I think is great, and it's probably one of the funniest gags in the whole film. But you get other little tidbits there too. You get nice little meta quotes from Deadpool, especially at the end. But it's great. It's a great trailer. If you were already excited for Deadpool 2, I can only imagine this trailer got you even more excited, because I know I'm more excited for it. So the movie will be directed by David Leitch, who directed John Wick and Atomic Blonde, who we will be talking about later in the podcast. The movie is also written by returning writers Rent Reese and Paul Wernick, and it will be coming out on May 18th. So just in a few weeks, not too long. The wait for that's not too long. So I'm all for it. Now, like I said, I'm all for it. So, all right. So let's move on to our final trailer of the week, and that is the new trailer for Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
She's tracked. Okay, come on.
Are you okay?
I'm okay.
How many can you save?
11 species. Blue is the last of her kind.
You'll never capture her.
We thought you might know someone who could help.
A rescue op. What could go wrong?
Hey, Blue. You know me.
Come with me. You know you can't stay here. Pack your men up right now.
It was all a lie!
The man who proved raptors can follow orders. You never thought how many millions a trained predator might be worth?
They're gonna sell them.
Not Blue. They need it for something else. What is that thing? They made it.
This is the most dangerous creature that ever walked the earth.
I say we shut this whole thing down.
Hey, girl, you think what I'm thinking? Genetic power has now been unleashed.
You can't put it back in the box.
Blue! If I don't make it back, remember you're the one who made me come here. I'll be all right.
These creatures were here before us. And if we're not careful, they're gonna be here after. Welcome to Jurassic World.
The sequel was directed by J.A. Bonilla, who of course directed A Monster Calls and The Impossible, and follows Owen, played by Chris Pratt, and Claire, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, returning to the island to evacuate the dinosaurs left there from an erupting volcano. However, we learn in this trailer that the evacuation was a ploy by a businessman played by Rafi Spall in the movie, who wants to, from the looks of it, sell off the dinosaurs. And of course they made a new dinosaur because humans apparently learn fucking nothing from their past mistakes. But yeah, the trailer looks great. It's you know, I liked Jurassic World, and I know since this trailer has come out, everyone's been saying that it's taking bits from The Lost World, and it's taking bits from Jurassic World 3, so everyone's kind of just going on the bandwagon of saying, oh, it's like the other movies we've seen before. And I can see, I saw that myself when I watched it, and that was actually one of the very things that popped in my head while I was watching it for the first time, without seeing the reactions to it. But I'm a fan of it. I mean, everything, especially with this. I mean, again, first of all, every movie they're making a dinosaur more dangerous and more lethal than the one they made before. They haven't learned their mistake. First of all, they made dinosaurs. That's mistake number one. That's always going to be the mistake in the movie. But I'm looking forward to it. I like it. Bonilla and the co-writer of the movie, Colin Trevorrow, who co-wrote the first one and directed the first one, and he's going to come back to direct the third one, because there was going to be a third one we talked about in the podcast. They have both played up the fact and have talked about it that the movie The Fallen Kingdom will play more into the horror genre than the previous movies, and from the looks of it, that certainly seems to be the case, because there is a lot of shots that are just straight up horror, terrifying shots. So, and when I heard that, there was some people that were kind of against that, and there were some people that were all for that, and I'm all for it, because this trailer sold me on those horror aspects. There's that scene, obviously, if you see a dinosaur in a home, in a house, it's going to be terrifying, especially when there's a little kid involved, and we see that in this trailer. But I'm all for it, man. I eat this stuff up. This is a perfect summer movie. I don't know why people are just like, I gotta look at the logic or everything. No, it's a summer movie. Settle the hell down. You're gonna be sitting there with your big ass bucket of popcorn, enjoying it like I am. So I'm done. I'm done with the people trying to take logical things within a movie. It's a movie. The logic does not exist. So there you go. So Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom opens later this summer on June 22nd. As always, we'll talk about more about that when we get closer to the release date. Alright, so those are all the trailers that came out this week. Like I said, it was a big week for trailers. All of them were top notch, and even the ones we didn't talk about, Hereditary and Life of the Party. All the links to those trailers, of course, are linked down below in the description/show notes area, so you guys go check that out. If something happens to drop while I'm editing this, or while it's exporting everywhere, then it will be linked down there as well. So let's move on, now that we're done with trailer talk, to this week's movie news items. Alright, so very quickly, some of the news items that I left out on the podcast this week, just because I don't have too much to say about them, or just because I just want to edit them out, or just because I just yeah, I don't have too much to say about them, more just because I want to, just the flow of all these news items won't work together. Jason Clarke is eyed for the Pet Sematary remake. That's kind of cool. Ed Sheeran, I always mispronounce his last name. He was the villain of Deadpool. He is going to be the villain in Maleficent 2. So that's kind of cool, I guess. I mean, he's kind of being typecasted, but that's fine. Triple X 4 is in the works, whether you like it or not. Vin Diesel will come back to play Xander Cage, and the director of the last movie, DJ Caruso, I think that's right, yeah, he will be returning to direct as well. And Vin Diesel now apparently co-owns the rights to Triple X, so we'll probably be getting a lot of Triple X movies in the future. Paramount is developing a M.A.S.K franchise with F. Gary Gray directing the first film. M.A.S.K, by the way, is a property from the 80s, and it stands for something, I forgot, mobile assault, something like that, task force, something like that, or command, or something like that. It's a property from the 80s. It was a TV show, it was toys, it's because nostalgia is real. John Ridley is teaming up with Blumhouse. He was the writer on 12 Years a Slave, for a comic book adaptation of The American Way, which he co-wrote the story in the comics, so that's kind of cool. And the Masters of the Universe movie, the He-Man movie, let's like just to say 80s properties and nostalgia, it's back. The Masters of the Universe movie finds new directors. That's something I usually talk about. However, the He-Man movie has had a tough time finding and keeping directors, so I'm not going to talk about it. But all those movie news items dropped this week, and all those movie news items are up on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/moviepit. That's facebook.com/moviepit. There is a link down below in the description/show notes area that you can go click, and it will take you right there. All you got to do is like, and it gives you an early preview of what we're going to talk about here on the podcast. And yeah, but I go more into detail here on the podcast than I do on the Facebook page. So yeah. All right, so let's move on to the news items I will be talking about in length. And the first one is Taron Egerton is going to play Elton John in the biopic Rocketman. The biopic of famed singer Elton John has found his lead in Taron Egerton from the Kingsman movies. If you're trying to put a face to the name, if you don't know, the movie will include John's emergence as a prodigy at the Royal Academy of Music to becoming a music superstar, and his partnership with songwriter Bernie Taupin. I think that's how you pronounce the last name. Of course, Elton John broke out with the 1973 album Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which topped the charts for 2 months in the US and in the UK. And this is going to be a nice reunion all the way around for the movie, because Matthew Vaughn, who directed the Kingsman movies, is producing Rocketman, and all three of them, of course, worked together on the last Kingsman movie, because Elton John had pretty much a glorified cameo role. Not even a cameo role, he was a supporting role. Also, the director of Rocketman will be Dexter Fletcher, who directed Eddie the Eagle, which starred Taron Egerton as the lead, and Fletcher and Vaughn have worked together on Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Layer Cake. So it's just a big old reunion all the way around. So yeah, there you go. Production is set to begin in the summer, so we'll probably be hearing a little bit more about this. I want to say that the Elton John biopic has been in the works for a little bit, and I want to say at one point Tom Hardy was in talks to play Elton John. I want to say that was the case, because I vaguely remember that, and that's not something I would just make up just for the hell of it. I'm pretty sure that was the case, and I forgot to look that up before I started recording, so I'm sorry for that, but yeah, I think that was the case. Alright, let's move on. Carrie Coon is set to voice one of Thanos' Black Order members in Avengers Infinity War, which comes out next week. It's still too long. Anyway, Avengers Infinity War, like I mentioned, it comes out next week, and while and we don't know nothing about the movie yet. We know there's a big-ass fight. We know Thanos is coming, and I know there's people finding out spoilers left and right, but I'm not one of those people. But the directors of the movie, Joe and Anthony Russo, they let it slip when they were talking to the British magazine Radio Times that the Black Order, played by Thanos, the Black Order, who is ruled by Thanos, they work for Thanos, they gave away the voice actors for for those characters. We knew nothing about the voice characters. We haven't really got too much of a good look. I mean, we got something from, I want to say it was Comic-Con or D23, but as for the movie, we haven't really seen them in action too much. But now we know who's voicing them. Carrie Coon, who is a big name that if you don't know, you should know who she is, because she is just killing it wherever she is. She was on the TV series The Leftovers. She was in Fargo. She was Ben Affleck's sister in Gone Girl. So she is just everywhere right now, and she's just a fantastic actress. And she was also in The Post, the Steven Spielberg movie, although she had a very small role in that, but still, that was her. So she will be voicing the character of Proxima Midnight, I think the only female Black Order member, and we see her very briefly in the trailers, and it looks in some of the TV spots or clips that's been coming out online. She's the one that's fighting Black Widow. So there is that. That's kind of cool. The character, like I mentioned, is part of Thanos' Black Order. And apparently Coon also did some motion capture for the role while she was pregnant. But we'll definitely hear her voice. She is voicing the character, at least for that. They also gave away, the Russos being the they, revealed the voices of the other members of the Black Order. The Irish actor Tom Von Lawler will voice Ebony Maw. He is the character shushing in the trailer, and from the edit, it looks like he's shushing Doctor Strange. But I don't think that's how that scene's going to play out, but he is the one shushing in the trailer, and motion capture actor, try saying that 5 times fast, Terry Notary, who has worked on the Planet of the Apes trilogy and Kong Skull Island. He will voice the character of Cole Obsidian. So there is that. So there leaves one Black Order member who is voiceless at the moment, and a lot of people are saying that we know that Peter Dinklage is in the movie. He is in Avengers Infinity War, but no one is saying who he's playing, and a lot of people are saying that he is voicing that last member of the Black Order. But of course we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, that's kind of cool. This is kind of cool. Little tidbits. I'm okay with little tidbits. That's not really necessarily a spoiler too much, because she's voicing the character, so that's fine. Let's move on. Disney's Jungle Cruise adds 2 big names for its villains. There's a lot of villains in the news this week, as you can tell. So the Disney adaptation of their own theme park ride has added 2 big names to their cast. Edgar Ramirez and Jesse Plemons have joined the movie, which will be led by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt, with Jaime Collet-Serra, who directed The Shallows and directed The Commuter earlier this year with Liam Neeson. He is directing the movie. Johnson will play a boat captain who takes a sister-brother duo, played by Emily Blunt and comedian Jack Whitehall, on a mission to find a tree believed to possess healing powers. During their mission, they encounter wild animals and a competing German expedition. I almost said exposition. Expedition. Ramirez will play a man with a conquistador background who is one of the film's villains, while Plemons will also play a villain role, but that is being kept secret. The reports only say he's playing a villain, though, so they do know that. Ramirez, for those of you who need a reminder, he was last seen on the assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story on FX, and he also had a small role in Netflix's Bright earlier this year. And Plemons was last seen in the comedy Game Night, but he is also known for Breaking Bad, for Fargo as well. So yeah, there you go. Jungle Cruise will start filming this summer, and that's kind of cool. The movie will take place in the 20th century, which is the reason why conquistador background is kind of stood out to me when I read it. I was like, what? And then I kept reading the news item, and it was like, no, the film takes place in the past, so you're okay. I'm like, all right, but there you go. All right, moving on. Video game news adaptation. It's been a while since we talked about the movie adaptation of the video game The Division, which was released by Ubisoft. The game was released by Ubisoft. But that all changes now because a director has been found for the movie. We already know that Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain will star in the movie, which is a very big get for the movie as a whole. And it was originally reported that Stephen Gaghan, who, I think I say his last name, he directed Gold, the Matthew McConaughey movie that came out, I believe, was it this year or last year? But he directed that, which also starred Edgar Ramirez. I just remember that. I didn't watch it, but I knew he was in it. He was going to direct, but that has changed because apparently Gag Hanna has left the project, and The Division will now be directed by David Leitch, the director of John Wick, Atomic Blonde, and Deadpool 2. So Leitch was just announced not just announced, but he was announced this week as the director of the movie. He was also just announced as the director of the Fast and Furious spinoff with Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, the Hobbs and Shaw movie. So that's pretty cool. So Leitch is a name that you should get used to hearing and liking because he's going to be directing a lot of stuff, and he's going to be on a lot of short lists, and we're going to be mentioning his name probably left and right. For the movie. So sources on the report that broke this say that Hobbs and Shaw will film first, and then once that's over and the press rounds are over, Leitch would move up to prep The Division sometime next year. So you'll be filming that sometime next year. Presumably, of course. Now, for those unfamiliar with The Division, it is based off the best-selling video game, and the story is set in the near future where a pandemic virus is spread on Black Friday, decimating New York City and killing millions by Christmas. What's left of society has descended into chaos, but a group of civilians who are trained to operate in these kind of moments. I don't know if it's the CDC or like an off branch of the CDC. They're activated by whatever kind of government is left over. They are then tasked with finding a cure and saving whatever remains of the world. So I've never actually played Division. I've seen other people play it, like on Twitch and stuff like that, and I've heard people who have played the game, close friends of mine as well, who have played the game, and they seem to like it. They weren't complete fans of it, but story-wise, it seems like something that a lot of people are up for seeing on the big screen. It does seem very cinematic, obviously, and again, you already got names like Jessica Chastain and Jake Gyllenhaal attached. Which are major gets, obviously, but video game movies do sometimes tend to, bring in the big names. Obviously, Assassin's Creed was like that. You had Michael Fassbender in there. You had Jeremy Irons and Marion Cotillard, which, got Alicia Vikander and Walton Goggins and Dominic West. So video game movies, despite not all of them being, all that great, they always tend to attract the big names. So, there is that. And of course, Tomb Raider wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad of a movie. Rampage, which is still a video game movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, was a dumb fun movie, and it wasn't that bad. So I'm okay with that. But and of course, Jake Gyllenhaal has already done a video game movie in Prince of Persia, which wasn't that kind of defeats the purpose of my earlier discussion and a little vent there, but. Yeah, that wasn't very good. But anyway, The Division. I think it's a cool move, and obviously with David Leitch now attached to direct the movie, I'm all for it because I'm a huge fan of David Leitch, and I think he's going to do some great things, and he's already done some great things. He did John Wick. Atomic Blonde was kind of jumbled around, a bit of a mess, but action-wise, it was really good. And so far, everything we've been seeing from Deadpool seems really good too. So. I'm all for from going in projects because it seems like he can handle it. So, and The Division kind of maybe seems a little bit up his alley. So we'll see what he can do with that. All right, so let's move on to some franchise history being made. The Star Wars franchise. That's right, Star Wars. It's done a lot in its time. Obviously, it's broken records and divided fans. Created galaxies, a galaxy filled with amazing characters. And all in all, it's a hell of a lot of fun. But with recent movements in Hollywood, obviously people are starting to notice that Star Wars hasn't done one thing, and that's have people of color behind the camera. Now, when Star Wars Episode 9 was left without a director, a lot of people were hoping that Lucasfilm would get a person of color, to direct the movie, and a lot of that was kind of aimed at Ava DuVernay, who people really wanted her to direct a Star Wars movie, and she didn't want to do it, or they couldn't find something, or I don't know what the reasoning was that she didn't do it, but they didn't hire her. They got J.J. Abrams back, and a lot of people were kind of peeved at that. But that all changes a little bit because, bit by bit, it will change. But this is a very big get, and it's a very important position. And a lot of people are saying, I don't know if a lot of people are saying this isn't big of a deal or isn't that important. It is a huge deal because obviously the Star Wars movies have a lot of action in them, and if anyone's going to direct these action sequences, it's going to be this person. So a report says, and I think it was a report, but it came from Eva DuVernay, of all people, who we talked about earlier. Star Wars Episode 9 will, for the first time ever, have a person of color working as the second unit director, and that person is Victoria Mahoney. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. Mahoney will be the first African American woman to serve as a director in any capacity in the Star Wars franchise. Now, for those unfamiliar or don't know, a second unit director is in charge of the film's, obviously, second unit, which is responsible for filming stunt sequences and complicated action set pieces. The second unit shoots simultaneously with the first unit, which is comprised of all the shots involving the principal cast and is overseen by the director. In Episode 9, that will be the case with J.J. Abrams. So Mahoney will be responsible for pretty much all the really big action sequences that probably don't necessarily involve all the principal cast. So that's pretty damn cool. You want to talk about David Leitch? David Leitch does a lot of... He still, to this day, even though he's directing movies, does a lot of second unit directing. He did this second unit directing for a lot of the Marvel movies, especially Civil War. So he's... second unit is very important, especially for an action movie. And a lot of directors film their own second... Like Christopher Nolan doesn't have a second unit. He films all of his stuff. But obviously, with a big franchise like Star Wars, you can't really have one director film everything because you need a massive team behind that. So Mahoney herself just directed a pilot episode for the new CBS show Redline, which she's also wrote and produced and directed a film called Yelling at the Sky. But this is a massive move up for her, and plus she's being trusted by one of the biggest directors in Hollywood, and is being trusted with one of the biggest franchises in Hollywood's history. So it's a win for everyone, really, when you think about it. I mean, obviously people would want probably a person of color to be directing the movie, but that's not happening as long as J.J. Abrams is still directing, or as long as J.J. Abrams is like, you know what, I don't want to direct anymore, and then you can have that conversation. But this is a massive get for Mahoney and for Lucasfilm and J.J., and this is really cool. I think this is really cool, and this is a really big moment in history, and it's probably the start of having people of color have more important positions behind the camera, or even the director's chair. We'll see how people react to that. And a lot of times, people don't pay attention to the second unit director, I should say, and that's fair, because I think everyone still assumes to this day that a director is in charge of directing the whole movie, and that is not the case. So anytime you watch the credits and you see the second unit, just know the first person they credit, which is probably the second unit director, they directed a lot of the big action sequences. So you should be thinking, especially in an action movie, you should be thanking them, along of course with the stunt people and the stunt choreographer and the action choreographer, because they make everything look cool. So there you go. Alright, so Star Wars Episode 9 does have a release date, of course, of next year, December 20th. We don't know what the movie's going to be about, who's in it, who new is in it anyway, who's new in the movie, I should say. But yeah, they're obviously they're hard at work at it already, but we won't know anything until they start filming. Let's move on. Warner Brothers lands a new director for the Birds of Prey movie, because yes, they are moving forward with the Birds of Prey movie. The movie is a Harley Quinn spin-off of Suicide Squad, with Margot Robbie reprising her role as Harley Quinn. So now the movie has landed a director in Kathy Yan. Yan is relatively new to the scene. She's directed 3 short films and made her directorial debut with the indie film Dead Pigs that came out earlier this year that actually starred Zazie Beetz. Yan will work off the script that has already been written by Christina Hodson, who just last week was hired to write the solo Batgirl movie. We'll get to that in a little bit more. But according to Variety, who brought the story, the script is apparently still in development. So it looks like they'll be going back to the drawing board of some sort. But sources say that Yan is likely to officially sign on to the script, or officially sign on to the movie once the script is officially finished. But right now, it looks like she is just hovering over the project, and she is in, but she's not officially in until they finish writing the script. Moreover, the plan is to have Birds of Prey act as a backdoor for Batgirl, similar to what they did basically with Black Panther. So they had him appear in Captain America: Civil War before getting his own movie. So that's what they're going to do with Batgirl. They're going to have her come into this, and then they're going to push it forward with her own movie. So that's the plan for Batgirl and for Birds of Prey. Now, Yan has had an interesting career trajectory herself. She started as a Wall Street Journal reporter who worked from New York, Hong Kong, and Beijing, and was one of the paper's youngest reporters to land multiple stories on the front page. So it's kind of interesting that she went from, journalist to director, which, not going to blame her for that. That's pretty cool. Production is expected to begin at the end of this year for Birds of Prey after Robbie wraps filming on Quentin Tarantino's movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is filming in the summer. Actually filming pretty soon. It's going to start filming in May. So yeah, there you go. I think it's going to start filming in May. It's going to film in the summer. Obviously May is part of the summer, but all right. Anyway, this is a huge get. This is pretty cool. Speaking of history, Cathy Yan is actually the first Asian American director to direct a superhero movie in general. So just history being made all around. So that's kind of cool. And I have not seen enough of Cathy. I did not see Dead Pigs. I haven't seen her short films. So, and they have a female director, which I think, people would appreciate. And the fact that it's a person of color, or a person, someone who's not white in general, I think is a huge get for a lot of fans as well. Do we need a Birds of Prey movie though? That's the question. I don't think we do, but we're getting it, I guess. So if it's good, then I'll go back and say that I was wrong. All right, let's move on to the last two big movie news items that came out this week. This one is pretty massive, and I was going to save this one for the actual big movie news item of the week. However, I didn't, obviously, because the next movie news item I have a bit of a rant to say, but this one I don't have too much of a rant to say. So, the Mad Max sequels are in doubt because of legal issues. Son of a bitch. Now, of course, Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015. It earned nearly $400 million worldwide and won pretty much all of the technical Oscars that year. So it won 6 Oscars, and has gained a cult following since then. And that usually means that a movie would get a sequel. The writer-director George Miller has wanted to do sequels. He even wrote stories for 2 more movies. And Charlize Theron and Tom, I almost call him Max Hardy. Tom Hardy have both said they wanted to come back and do sequels if, they were given the chance. So why hasn't there been sequels? Well, like I mentioned, legal issues. Now try to stay with me, because apparently in November of last year, George Miller and his production company Kennedy Miller Mitchell filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers, alleging that Warner Brothers pretty much gypped them on paying a $7 million bonus for bringing Fury Road under budget of $157 million. Which, first of all, the fact that it cost $157 million to make Mad Max is both impressive considering what you saw, and very, very cool. Anyway, Warner Brothers, meanwhile, claims that the film did go over budget, and, of course, obviously, Miller is not entitled to his bonus after all. Now, so, 1, there's that. 2, and an interesting move I didn't know about this. Warner Brothers tried to get the lawsuit moved out of Australia, which apparently is where it's being held at the moment, since I assume because probably George Miller is actually from Australia. But the Australian Supreme Court wasn't having any of that. They're like, no, we're not moving it. No. So according to the Sydney Morning Herald, new court filings have shed some light on what's really going on. And again, it's not looking good. So Miller's production company claims that Fury Road came in at the cost of $154.6 million, while Warner Brothers claims that the film cost $185.1 million. It's a massive difference. In the court filings, Miller's company alleges that Warner Brothers insisted certain scenes in the script not to be shot, with Miller instead directing other added new scenes and a new ending. Now, additionally, Miller's company notes that Warner Brothers later approved a plan to shoot new scenes at the cost of $31 million, but that those costs were to be excluded from the final cost of the movie, owing to the fact that the reshoots were a necessity that were born out of Warner Brothers meddling. Now, in a counter filing, Warner Brothers says that Fury Road, quote, significantly exceeded the budget approved, or the approved budget, end quote, with the extra costs caused largely by Miller's production company. So it's back and forth, he said, she said. Now, Warner Brothers also claims that they merely suggested an alternate ending rather than insisting on it, and that Miller's company agreed to fund some of the additional filming in 2013. Now, the filing notes that Warner Brothers, quote, destroyed, unquote, the relationship of trust by allegedly refusing to pay Miller in his bonuses, and to pay Miller's bonus. They were unable to work together on any future installments. Now, again, according to the Sydney Morning Herald, Miller told students at NIDA, or NIDA, during a talk he didn't know if the sequels would ever happen, but added that he's been working on getting a range of scripts ready to shoot in the interim, so it's not like he's sitting idly by. However, the fact that Miller is currently engaged in a heated lawsuit with Warner Brothers probably means you can take him off any kind of director wish list or short list for any of the DC movies in the near future, like it was rumored to be, because there was that massive rumor that George Miller would reportedly be directing Man of Steel 2, but obviously that's not happening anymore. And probably was never going to happen. It was just a rumor. Maybe Warner Brothers was like, hey, you want to do this thing? Maybe we can clear the air a little bit. And Miller was like, no, screw you. You owe me money.
Getting real tired of you ducking me, man. Yeah?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Getting really tired. Where's my money? Where's my money?
So when I first read this, I was like, this is sad, because obviously we're not going to get a Mad Max movie because of legal issues, because Warner Brothers doesn't want to pay George Miller. Now, like I mentioned, I jokingly said this, but it is basically what this is. It's a he said, she said kind of story. We don't know if the reasoning behind, the movie apparently maybe going over budget was because of Warner Brothers meddling. Maybe there was something lost in translation when Warner Brothers and George Miller's production company were talking. We don't know. But here's the thing, George Miller, first of all, is, lost out of $7 million of bonuses for Mad Max Fury Road. And the fact that this is only coming out now is like, wait a minute, the movie came out in 2015. Why are we just hearing about this in 2018? Why is this all of a sudden a news story? But that's one thing. The fact that Miller's, if that is the case, then Warner Brothers screwed him out of $7 million as a bonus for a movie that has, again, gained basically a cult following. But the other end of it, and at the end of it that affects us, the fans, we lose out of getting future Mad Max movies. Now, it's not like, obviously Warner Brothers can probably do this, and I don't know if they can, because I don't know who actually holds the rights to the movies. I don't know if it's Warner Brothers or if it's George Miller who actually owns the rights to Mad Max. But if Warner Brothers is like, well, we want to make another Mad Max movie, we don't need George Miller. First of all, yes, you do, because George Miller has directed all of the Mad Max movies, and I don't see anyone really stepping into his shoes and directing a Mad Max movie without making it kind of seem like a Mad Max knockoff. Because if you're gonna do a Mad Max movie, you have to have George Miller involved some way. You have to, because it's George Miller, and I don't think you can really have anyone other than that. That's just me. Maybe that's just my opinion. I personally would not want to see a Mad Max movie not directed by George Miller. unless it was someone that George Miller knew was like, hey, okay, I'm handing off the reins to you. Let's tell everyone so everyone's not, getting all uppity. But I don't know. I don't think that's going to be. I don't know if that's the case. I don't like this. I don't like when legal issues or any kind of issues or rights issues for that matter and get in the way of fans not getting the thing that they wanted. And this isn't the first time that's happened. Let's be honest. This is not the first time that's happened. But the fans are the ones that ultimately end up losing in all this craziness. All right, so let's move on to the big movie news item of the week, which when I read, I was like, okay, first of all, I read it as a fan, so I was like, oh wow, that's pretty impressive. And then it took me literally a minute to realize, wait a minute, this is bullshit. So I'll tell you why it's bullshit. So Steven Spielberg is set to produce and potentially direct a DC movie of the Blackhawks.
Say what?
So Steven Spielberg is set to produce and potentially direct a DC movie, an adaptation of their comic book property, Blackhawk. Now, for those of you that don't know what Blackhawk is, it's a comic book that started in the 1940s, and it followed a small team of World War II pilots led by the character of Blackhawk. And the team had diverse nationalities of the team was compiled of that. Who fought the Nazis and their allies, and it's basically a Steven Spielberg movie if there ever was one. So the deal comes after Spielberg had apparently a great working relationship with the studio Warner Brothers on Ready Player One. So Spielberg released a statement saying, quote, "It was wonderful working with the team at Warner Brothers to bring Ready Player One to the screen. They bring a blend of passion and professionalism to everything they do and have tremendous history in this genre. I am excited to reunite with them on Blackhawk." End quote. Again, at the moment, Spielberg is only producing the movie with his production banner, of course, Amblin Entertainment, and Spielberg's frequent collaborator David Koepp, who wrote Jurassic Park, War of the Worlds, and in the upcoming Indiana Jones 5, he's writing the screenplay for Blackhawk, so it's a nice little reunion for them. However, don't expect Blackhawk to be coming out anytime soon. Spielberg's next movie that he is going to direct is going to be Indiana Jones 5, which starts filming next year, and he also plans on shooting the West Side Story remake that he's working on next year as well, if he can get that together. So here's why I'm calling bullshit on this. And I mentioned this on my personal Twitter account. I didn't mention it on the Facebook page or anything like that. I don't know if you guys remember, but I think it was it last year or maybe 2 years ago, Steven Spielberg came out and he basically said that the superhero genre was gonna go the way of the Western. Now, if you're not familiar with Western movies, it's because we don't get a ton of them nowadays. If we get a Western movie, it's usually not very good, or it comes out straight to DVD or VOD. Now, Western movies, to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson, Western movies were basically the cornerstone of Hollywood. They were everywhere. The only thing that ever came out in movie theaters back in the day were Western movies. So Western movies basically, all the way back then, and when the movies started becoming a real thing and were a major get at the time, they were basically the superhero movies of back in the day. And obviously the Western genre has died out. It's not gone because, again, people are still making Western movies. Again, they just don't get wide releases. They get limited releases, or they come out on video on demand. Because no one really goes to watch Westerns anymore, which is kind of a shame. But he came out and basically, Steven Spielberg basically kind of came out and said that the superhero genre, although it's not really a genre, and there's a great little podcast episode by Junk Food Cinema, and I think it's part of their Patreon podcast. I don't think it's part of their actual their free episode logs. I think you have to pay. I think you have to become one of their Patreons to listen to this episode. But I was listening to this episode with my brother in the car, and one of the people on the podcast, which is actually Robert Cargill, who wrote Doctor Strange, and and also wrote Sinister. He basically kind of said, and I kind of agree with him a little bit, the superhero movies aren't a genre. Because they're not. And he's right. They're not a genre. Superhero movies can be any genre you want them to be. It just, for a lot of the cases, they always tend to be action movies or adventure movies. But, you have, every now and then, you have the New Mutants, which will be a horror movie. So it's kind of interesting that we just automatically assume that superhero movies are actually superhero genre movies. They're not. They're not actually genre movies. And he has a more sophisticated way of putting it. I just can't remember what it was. But that was the part that stuck out to me. But anyway, going back to Steven Spielberg. He said that, it was the superhero movies are going to go the way of the Western. They're going to be gone in a few years. And, we'll never talk about them ever again. And they're not very good or whatever kind of thing he said. And I remember reading that, and I remember having a discussion with a few friends, and some people saying that maybe, that he's right. There's gonna, we're gonna get superhero fatigue, and these superhero movies are gonna stop coming out, and that's gonna be the end of it. We're gonna stop getting superhero movies. First of all, no, we're not. Superhero movies, whether you watch them or whether you like them or not, are here to stay. They're gonna be here for a while. And I'll tell you one main reason: consumers. Because no matter how bad you think those movies are, and a lot of them aren't bad, a lot of them are actually very good. Not all of them are perfect. I can even say that. But people are going to go watch them. It's the same conversation we have, like, why do they keep making Transformers movies if they, suck all the way to high heaven? The reason why they keep making Transformers movies is because people go watch them. It's not even the overseas numbers. It's not even the people that are overseas that are watching them. It's the people here, because they keep making a shit ton of money here in the States too. I mean, obviously it's declined because people have started to realize that these movies aren't that great anymore. But there's still enough people and enough to warrant them to make sequels and make more. And there's always going to be a studio be like, oh man, like, look at those numbers. We can make something completely better and have it be better, and then everyone will go watch it. And guess what? Everyone goes to watch it. Superhero movies are here to stay, whether you like them or not. They're not all going to be good. They're not all going to be great, but people are going to go watch them. And that was one of the things that Cargill said, and one of the things that I've kind of always been saying too, that, even if the superhero genre, quotation marks around genre, starts to die down, there's still going to be a lot of movies to do it. Like, you look at Marvel, and and that's the other thing, and he brings this up, and it's something that I didn't even think about, and he was right. Everyone was like, oh, there's too many superhero movies. Not really. Marvel releases at most 2 to 3 movies a year. Just Marvel themselves, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This year we have Infinity War, we have Black Panther, we're going to have Ant-Man and the Wasp later this year, and then that's it. And then next year we have Captain Marvel and Avengers 4. And that's it. That's all we have for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We get 3 Marvel movies a year. And then, you have Fox, who sometimes releases 1 or 2 movies. We're not going to get any this year because they delayed New Mutants, and they delayed X-Men Dark Phoenix till next year. So we're not getting any of those. So we're not getting a Fox. We got Deadpool. That's it. We got Deadpool 2. That's the only one coming out this year for Fox. And then for DC, you have Aquaman at the end of the year. We don't have a lot of superhero movies coming out. It just feels like there's characters who are superheroes because they do all these unbelievable tasks in these movies. They survive a building falling on them, but that's just, you can call it lazy writing, or, whatever you want to call it. We don't get a lot of superhero movies every year. It seems like it, but we really don't. Marvel, again, releases 3 themselves. DC's releasing, it seems like, 1 a year now, and that's it. And then you got Marvel, Marvel over at Fox, and that's it. You don't get a lot of superhero movies, so the whole conversation about there being too many superhero movies seems a little odd to me. And I didn't realize it until I heard it on this podcast. Not my podcast, obviously, the other podcast. So I don't know. And again, there's people that go watch them. There's a lot of people that go watch these movies. There's a reason they make a crap ton of money, because people want to go watch them. You don't have to go watch them, but people do. I know I do, and it's not because I feel like I have to, it's because I want to. Because I'm a nerd, and I want to go watch it. I don't know how this conversation went from Steven Spielberg is potentially finally directing a comic book movie to me kind of going, it kind of stemmed from the thing that apparently everyone forgot about, of Steven Spielberg like saying that he, thought the superhero genre was going, was on the way out. Maybe he wanted to direct one before it went out. I don't know. And I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna go watch it. Those words never left my mouth. I just want to call bullshit on the people that seem to forget that Steven Spielberg said, yeah, superhero movies aren't for me. They're the way of the Western. They're going to die out. No one's going to care about superhero movies in 5-10 years. Which is not true, because that interview was like 2-3 years ago, and everyone's all aboard the hype train for Avengers Infinity War when it comes out next week. So, I don't know. Alright. That's it. That's all the movie news items I got for you guys. Like I mentioned, this was a big week this week for movie trailers. I think I probably forgot to mention this was a big week for movie news items as well, but it was. So, and again, I want to apologize for the podcast coming out a little later than usual. But yeah, so we're not done yet, guys. Though. Even though I'm apologizing, we're not done yet. I'll apologize again a little bit later, so just get ready for that. Let's move on to this week's movie releases.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
So we don't really have any noteworthy limited releases, so we're just going to jump right to the wide releases this week. The first one is Traffic. A couple off for a romantic weekend in the mountains are threatened by a bike gang. Alone in the mountains, Bree and John must defend themselves against the gang, who will stop at nothing to protect their secret. Traffic stars Paula Patton, Omar Epps, Rosalind Sanchez, Laz Alonso, Luke Goss, and William Fichtner. I saw the trailer for the first time in theaters a while back ago, obviously. And I don't know. I mean, it was just one of those movies where I kind of looked at it and I'm like, I don't know. By the way, heads up. This weekend, I am probably not going to go to the movie theaters. I'm just telling you straight out right now. This is a rare week where I look at the movies coming out in theaters and I am not excited for any of these movies. And there's a good chance that I'm not going to go to the movie theaters at all this weekend. Where I'm just going to sit. I got some stuff to catch up on my DVR, so I may just do that. This is one of those rare weekends where I have no interest in going to watch any of the movies that are out in theaters right now. It's a rare thing that happens, but it happens every once in a while. And this weekend feels like it. And obviously, if you go watch these movies, I mean, that's obviously your deal. None of these movies interest me whatsoever. Traffic did not interest me whatsoever. I mean, I may go watch one of these movies like during the middle of the week, like a matinee or something, but other than that, I'm not all that excited for any movies that are coming out this week. And I know it's probably going to give me some flack, especially on one of them, but that's fine. But Traffic, yeah, that does nothing for me. The trailer did nothing for me. It was just one of those things where I was like, I can kind of see where this is going, but whatever. Alright, so the next movie is I Feel Pretty, which is the name of the movie, obviously. A woman, played by Amy Schumer, struggling with insecurity, wakes from a fall believing she is the most beautiful and capable woman on the planet. Her new confidence empowers her to live fearlessly, but what happens when she realizes her appearance never changed? I Feel Pretty co-stars Michelle Williams, Andy Bryant, Rovi Scoville, and Naomi Campbell. I watched the trailer. I'm not the biggest Amy Schumer fan. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this on the podcast before. I'm not the biggest Amy Schumer fan. I'm not. I did watch Trainwreck. I thought it was okay. It wasn't, the best thing ever, like some people said it was. I watched Snatched, and I thought it was, again, I just thought it was enjoyable. Amy Schumer was not even the best thing about Snatched. It was Ike Barinholtz's character, but I watched the trailer for I Feel Pretty, and I couldn't get behind it. It was just one of those things where I was watching the trailer, and there was a part of the trailer where it's like, this is kind of cringeworthy, but it lends itself to be cringeworthy. So it's one of those things where it's like it knows what it's doing, but it's doing it anyway. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Amy Schumer. You know, I never got into her comedy, and I never, you know, got into the show that she was a part of, her show basically. And again, I watched Trainwreck. I thought it was okay. I saw Snatched. I thought it was okay. And I don't know. I'm not for this. It's not targeted toward me, I guess. Maybe that's what it is. I've been hearing some people talk about it, and it seems like, yeah, it's basically kind of what I thought of was from the trailer, just hearing people's reactions from it already. So I was like, no, yeah, that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. All right, so let's move on to the final wide release of the week, which is Super Troopers 2. It is the sequel, of course, to Super Troopers. It was a long-awaited sequel. It actually got credited by crowdsourcing. I think it was it Indiegogo? No, I don't think it was. I think it was Kickstarter. But anyway, it was a crowdsourced sequel. When a border dispute arises between the U.S. and Canada, the Super Troopers are tasked with establishing a highway patrol station in the disputed area. I honestly don't remember too much about the first movie. I honestly can't even remember if I saw the first movie. I remember seeing bits of it, but I don't know if it was just bits of it or if I saw the whole thing. Like, I vaguely remembered the Leader of Cola joke, and then, you know, the sequel brings it up, so the trailer brings it up, so I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of remember that. I know Super Troopers is like has a cult following. I know a lot of people love it, but I can't remember if I saw the whole thing or not, and it was so long ago that I just can't remember. And then watching the trailers for this, it was like, I didn't grin, or I probably chuckled a little bit, but I didn't like really laugh or anything for the movie at all, for the trailer at all, so that's probably a bad sign. I don't know if I'm just over the whole kind of slapstick kind of style of comedy. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just becoming a bitter old man. I don't know. But I can't get behind it. I don't know what it is. And it's just one of those things where I'm just not excited for. And I know there's a lot of people excited right now to go watch this. So I don't know, man. It didn't click with me. It's just one of those rare weekends where it's like nothing clicks with me, and it's not even because like, oh, I'm stupid, super hype for Avengers: Infinity War next week. No, it's just that this weekend gives me nothing. I'm not excited really for any of these movies. So I'm sorry, I guess, if I insulted you or offended you in any sort of way. But yeah. So again, your wide releases this week are Super Troopers 2, I Feel Pretty, and Traffic. Usually this is the part where I do a sneak peek for next week, but we already know what's coming out next week, which is Avengers: Infinity War. I will be talking about it on the podcast, because of course I will be going to go watch it on Thursday, so I will be talking about it next week on the podcast. We also have a limited release next week. It's a drama with Rachel McAdams and Rachel Weisz. We'll talk about that, of course, next week. But that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I just, again, want to apologize for the podcast coming out probably a little later than usual. Like I mentioned, these last few days have been kind of tiresome and very just work heavy. So I apologize for having the podcast come out late and for the podcast being probably a little bit uneven this week. So I just want to apologize for that. I'm just super dead tired. I don't know if you guys can tell. I try to hide it very well, but yeah, it's just it's getting to me a little bit. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I really appreciate it. No matter where you're listening to this, if you're listening to this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on SoundCloud, or if you're listening to this on iTunes, thank you so much for showing me the love wherever you're listening to it. Wherever you're listening to it, show me the love even more by hitting that subscribe button, by hitting that follow button, whatever. If you're listening to on iTunes, I would appreciate it if you leave me a rating and review. I'm not asking for 5 stars, because I don't think you probably maybe don't think I deserve a 5-star rating, which is fine. But if you give me a review, no matter what, I will read it on the podcast, because I can always use it. Helps out the podcast in the long run, helps me out in the long run as well. So yeah. If you're listening to this on iTunes, and hit that subscribe button. If you have an iPhone, obviously. If you don't have an iPhone, then this part doesn't matter to you. But you can go download the YouTube or SoundCloud app, and you can go listen to the podcast there. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Like I mentioned, Next week, we'll be talking about Avengers Infinity War, and of course, all the news items that come out, all the big noteworthy news items that will come out next week, and all the trailers that will come out next week. I believe the first trailer for Crazy Rich Asians will be coming out on Monday next week, so we'll definitely be talking about that on the podcast next week. And yeah, so everything you need is in the description/show notes area. Links to the trailers that came out this week. I highly recommend you go check those out because they were all fantastic. Link to the WordPress account where I do spoiler-free written reviews. Obviously, there won't be one this week, but there's a review up there for Rampage if you want to go watch it. I was going to review Truth or Dare. I said that last week on the podcast. Then I saw it, and I was like, no, I'm not going to review that movie because I'm not going to do it. So that should give you my opinion on what the movie was for me. But yeah, what else is down there? My personal Twitter and Instagram is down there. The Twitter for the for the podcast and the Facebook for the podcast. Yeah, the Twitter for the podcast and the Facebook for the podcast is up there as well. Yeah, so that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week, and I will see you guys next week. So have a good, fun, safe weekend. Be safe, and as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!